So welcome everybody to Ask a CEO. We're here with Bobby Herrera today, who has a very interesting story. He tells the story of the American dream come true. Came from meager means and now runs a company in the HR space that works for Fortune 100 companies. Not only is he a leader, he's an author, he's a speaker, and he recently wrote a book called The Gift of Struggle, which identifies the positives found in struggles, which you wouldn't ordinarily think of it, right, while you're in it. And he believes that everybody deserves the opportunity to succeed and that the struggles are the things that bind us together and inspire us. So welcome to the show, Bobby.
Hail the underdogs, Greg.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Hail the underdogs. I love that. I love that. So listen, so you have a very interesting journey to the CEO suite. And maybe you could give us a little bit from the starting point and a little bit about the journey that gets you where you are today.
I'd be proud to. Well, my PhD in struggle started early. You said meager. I think you rounded up. I'm a student of struggle. You know, I'm number 11 of 13, first one born in the U.S. You know, I still eat with my elbows on the table, Greg.
Mommy's going to holler at you.
I grew up in a migrant farm working family, part of the, invisible workforce, hand picking fruits and vegetables for most of my young, formidable years. And, as I entered high school and so forth, I had a kind act that changed my life, helped me start reframing my story. And then I joined the Army, raised my hand. I'm a proud Army veteran. And, I started my professional career after I got out of the Army and went to college, and then my entrepreneurial journey started in 2002. And let me tell you, those first 5 years are the most fun I never want to have again. And,
I hear you.
I'm in year 18 of that story that I'm narrating. God's given me more than I deserve. And there's not enough time on this conversation to share the long list of infinite mistakes I've made. And
well, maybe we can get you to share a couple with us.
Oh, so you bet. You bet.
You, right? But
we can.
I was interested with that little anecdote you told about that life-changing moment. Maybe you'd like to share that.
Well, when I was 17, Greg, my brother Ed and I, we were on a return trip home from a basketball game. This is a bus story. It's the first chapter of The Gift of Struggle. And, on the way home, the team stopped for dinner. Well, everybody unloaded off the bus except for me and Ed. We didn't have the means to play sports and afford dinner. Well, a few moments after the team unloaded, one of the dads of the other players, he steps on board the bus. And, he teased me a little bit at first because Ed had outscored me that night. And then he said something to me that I'll always remember. Bobby, it would make me very happy if you would allow me to buy you boys dinner so that you and Ed can join the rest of the team. Nobody else has to know. All you have to do to thank me is do the same thing for another great kid just like you in the future. And to this day, Greg, it's hard for me to explain the wave of gratitude that came over me at that moment. And, I graciously accepted, before I knew it, I was stepping off that bus. And I had no idea what I was going to do with my life at that point. I knew that I wanted to raise my hand a year from then. Mm-hmm. But other than that, all I knew is I wanted my future to look different than my past.
It's funny that moments like that can have such an impact on a young person going forward. You had a tough start. You got to a place where you couldn't even get off the bus and have a hamburger. And somebody stepped up and said, Bobby, you know what? I got you covered. As long as you pass it on, it's a good thing. So that's a wonderful, wonderful story. So right after that, you went in the Army. So
right.
in the Army, okay, you actually learned discipline, you learned how to be part of a team and so forth. So how did that lend those abilities? You became a sergeant, right? So you got some leadership training. How did that translate into the business world?
Well, many lessons that I've carried over. The Army, it's no different than anything else. It's a balance sheet, right? There's great things and there's liabilities. There's not good things, right? So, but I needed it. My frontal lobes weren't developed enough, Greg. I needed to get the rigor and discipline beat into me, and I was a hard way learner. And the Army, what I share that the most valuable lesson that the military taught me was, and I'll often ask entrepreneurs, like, what's the single most important asset that you will ever own? And I get some creative answers, but I always get them down to what I believe is the single most important one, and that is trust. Like, regardless of what we choose to do, what service, product, or journey we're on, trust is the most important asset that we'll ever own. And serving in the Army really taught me to be grateful and to appreciate the value of trust and how to build it and how to take care of the person on the left and the right of me. And, I've carried forward that lesson, plus a lot of the, the debrief,
Yeah.
discussing the mission before, after, and during, like that, those types of lessons, they're invaluable. And
Yeah,
I'm
I
incredibly
love
grateful
that.
for
I
them.
love that about veterans. I would prefer to hire a veteran over pretty much anybody else because of that. They've gone through it. They know the pieces of the puzzle. They know how to be part of a team. If we all work in silos, that really doesn't work really well. Now,
Amen.
your company is interesting because it's a little different than most HR companies, but what would intrigue me was that you work for so many Fortune 100 companies. So now starting in 2002, this is 20, right? How did you scale your company to serve those types of clients?
Well, I'm very grateful. We have a very strong portfolio of Fortune 100 companies that have extended their trust to us, and I think it's just that's it, Greg. In that, trust is the most important metric that I measure, and I've built an organization and a culture that intentionally measures it. And when it comes to earning an opportunity with someone, that's all you're doing is you're earning and doing whatever you need to do to earn the trust of the person across the table from you.
Mm.
And carrying forward that mindset and that mentality, and little principles like service. It's nothing more than just, hey, doing more than is expected,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
just do one thing more than you're asked. And those types of behaviors are cumulative, and I've been fortunate that we built rigor and a mindset around that, and I've got great people that live that.
So I'm supposing, I'm assuming that your training is pretty much built around that.
Well, it's all about good manners, making great people better people, and
Yeah.
like one of the things that anyone that's selected to be a part of our community, I call my company a community, and I very intentionally share the difference. And trust is one of those main factors. But from moment one, when we select someone to be a part of our organization, we engulf them in the story, we engulf them in the purpose and why we exist and how we expect them to behave. And
Interesting.
we let them know from day one, you were selected to make us better. So we're here to make great people better people, and better people are better business people. It's not that complicated, but it takes work.
Yeah, well, you have to have the focus. But so that brings me to the next question, which also is part of it, the answer you already said. Culture is very important to you. From what I know about you and your company, the culture of the company is probably right at the top of your mindset,
Mhm.
both inside and outside the organization. Maybe you could tell us why that is so important in the way you lead.
Yeah, great question. I want to take us back to that bus story that I shared at the beginning, because as powerful of a moment that bus story was, it's actually one of my biggest leadership mistakes, Greg, in that I didn't share it until about year 10 of my entrepreneurial journey. So it was raging like an inferno inside of me. And I'm the only one that knew the story besides my brother who had been on the bus and my wife. I was afraid. I had yet to figure out that vulnerability is a key competency of leadership. I thought people didn't want to hear it. But once I did, that's what started the transformation from my company to a community. And we've been building on it ever since. And therein lies, the answer to your question. Culture is everything to me. It is the most important thing. It's a single, only thing that I will not delegate. I own it, and it is my responsibility to enhance it, to make it better, to create the safety around it. And culture is interesting. It comes from the Latin word cultus, which means to care. And as a leader, the culture we build and the feeling of safety that we create in an organization demonstrates to our wonderful people how much we care. In other words, do I want more for you than from you? And when you lead that way, it comes back to you several fold. And I've been grateful that I've been able to build a community that knows that's how much I care for them.
That's the foundation of a good company, is a good
It
leader
is.
who understands that the employees and the staff are the business.
Yeah.
You know, without them, we're just sitting in a corner office someplace playing video games or whatever, you know.
Mm.
So I appreciate that very much. What do you guys do in terms of corporate citizenship?
Well, the reason we exist at our core is, you know, we believe everyone deserves an opportunity to succeed. Like, that's the answer to, hey, why does Populus Group exist? And what I am doing is bringing that bus story to life. So Populus Group has become my vehicle to pay forward that kind act to other kids who were born on the wrong side of the opportunity divide. And so we've built an entire organization around that purpose. And, you know, we've invested heavily, and I call it the triangle of love, right? So I believe that when you really believe in something, you give it the triangle of love. You give it time, energy, and money. Those are the 3 points. So we invest a lot of time, energy, and money, that triangle of love, into bringing that bus story to life. It's why we exist.
That's just wonderful. I love those stories. People who sit in the corner office sometimes get a bad rap. We're only interested in making money. That's so far from the truth. I can't tell you. Every CEO I talk to has the same mindset of the giving back. I've done well. It's my turn. And I love that. And I praise you for it, quite frankly.
Yeah, thank you. And, you know, and Greg, one thing that if I may, because that's a very important point, I too have share that observation. What I also share, and what I'll also encourage, you know, these wonderful, strong men and women who have, you know, made it to that part of the mountain as a leader of an organization, is your responsibility is also to tell that story, that meaningful, deeply personal, profound reason as to why you're doing it. And I find that many are making that same mistake that I made, not sharing that wonderful story. And if you don't share that story, then your people aren't going to know how to help you. And you have to give them contribution. That's something to contribute to. Otherwise, they don't know.
That's part of my job, is to pull those out, those stories that mean so much.
Yeah.
You know? And yours was easy because I had heard it, and I think it was an important one to tell. So you're pretty dynamic. You're an author, you're a speaker, right? But what drives you to share so much of yourself with others? Is it just purely the give back? Or is there something inside of you that says, I've learned so much, I have to give it back? Why is that important?
Well, you know, I get asked often, you know, hey, Bobby, why'd you write the book? You know, The Gift of Struggle. Why, you know, my dad was a magnificent storyteller. I'm a storyteller at heart. You know, writing the book wasn't on my list. I'm actually a pretty introverted guy, although I'm relatively extroverted too. But you know, I haven't done what I've done alone, and you know, a kind act changed my life. And I made a promise to that man that stepped on the bus that I would pay forward that kind act. So I'm paying forward that kind act. Fortunately, I'm doing it in a manner that's greater than I ever imagined. I'm going to continue to live that. But the reality of it is giving feels good. And, you know, I think we as a human animal are wired to have a spirit of generosity. And, you know, the more we give, and, you know, I sign off all my emails with give more than you take. Now that's not synonymous with generosity. I mean, with charity, right? Like that's different. That's a different conversation. So I'm highly involved and highly demanding on the things that I say yes to. The things that I do say yes to get that triangle of love, and, you know, I get to. And so, like, I'm blessed.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, we all are, quite frankly. It's an easy conversation for me to have because there's so many similarities between yourself and myself. So the gift of struggles, right? Okay, so yeah, chapter 1 is the bus story. Mm-hmm. And it goes on from there. Maybe you could tell us one or two of those struggles that you faced that taught you something very, very important.
Maybe a good place to start, Greg, if you don't mind, is, about 3 weeks into basic training, I was up late at night. It was about 11:30. I was polishing my boots by flashlight, and all around me, I could hear the other soldiers complaining about the night that had no end in sight, and the morning that was going to start way too soon. And I remember for the first time thinking to myself, you know, I've been waking up in the wee hours of the morning to work in the fields since I was going to be in third grade. I'd been asked to leave the table because of the color of my skin. I knew what it was like not to have any money, very little free time. And I remember thinking to myself for the very first time, it's like, there's nothing they can say or do to me in the next, 2-3 months that I haven't somehow faced, in many cases, in a harsher manner. And for the very first time in my life, I started reframing my story. And I vividly remember saying, maybe all that struggle was part of the plan. And that was a turning point for me because I started looking at my story differently. And that's where I started reshaping what ultimately became my leadership philosophy, and that, we all struggle. Every struggle teaches us something. That's the gift. And leadership is sharing those gifts with others. And that was the flap of the butterfly wings of me viewing struggle as a gift. And I've been grateful that I've been able to look at some of these big mistakes and struggles that I've had, many that I share in the book, and I can mine for the gift. It's not easy, but I've been able to do that.
So when you've been faced with one of those less than stellar accomplishments, how do you attack that? How do you attack one of those downturns, pitfalls, obvious mistakes in retrospect? How does Bobby Herrera handle those?
Well, I'm human, Greg, so I also want to make sure that I very openly share that even though I've learned to reframe struggle, I still think struggle sucks, right? I don't openly go inviting it into my life, right? But what I've learned is that you you'd have to be crazy to want to struggle, but you have to be crazier to think that it's not going to happen. So what I've learned is to understand the difference, and while I'm going through it, to ask myself, okay, what am I learning? Not why is it happening? What am I learning? And where have I faced this before? This feeling, because, struggle, the technical definition is, meeting some form of resistance, but it's the pain inside that's the real struggle, the self-doubt. So when I have those moments of self-doubt, I go down the trail, I climb the trail of questions,
Right.
and that's how I get through it. Questions open doors that otherwise remain closed.
We're having this wonderful conversation between two CEOs, but what I neglected to ask you was to tell us about your company. Tell us what it does, who it serves, and what's its differentiator.
Well, the name is Populus Group, Latin for people. As you mentioned, we're an HR services firm, and the problem we solve for the world is relatively simple. We help organizations better manage their non-permanent workforce.
Oh, different.
So in English, most organizations have two workforces: a permanent full-time workforce, and then a non-permanent workforce that's comprised of contractors, independent consultants, you name it, right? And that's frustrating, and they all have different roles. So we help organizations better manage that population so they can make better decisions. But at our core, we're building something bigger than ourselves. I don't call my employees, I call them climbers. And so we've built a culture around that methodology that, hey, we're all climbing our own mountain, and we got to help each other get up it.
That's interesting. How big is the organization in terms of headcount of employees?
Well, we have over 300 internal full-time employees, and at any given time, over 6,000 consultants working for us across the country.
And it's national or outside the country as well?
It's primarily national. We do we do global through partnerships, but we have also a presence in Canada, our
Gotcha.
neighbors of the north.
So listen, I really want to thank you for being on the show today, but I'd like to give you the opportunity to tell people a little bit more about the book, The Gift of Struggles, how they can get it, and how they can get a hold of you for more information about Populus Group or yourself. The floor is yours.
You bet. You bet. Well, the title of the book, as you mentioned, is The Gift of Struggle, life-changing lessons about leading. So what I often share is that, if stories and learning how to become a better version of yourself, how to reframe your struggles, how to look at your own leadership climb and self-assess some of those wonderful opportunities that you have to get to that leadership summit that you imagine, if that's important to you, pick up the book. It'll provoke thought that will help you take control of that story. It's simple. You can find it in, if you're traveling, which not many people are doing much of. It was a big airport book because it was a short read, and all major retailers carry it. My website's bobby-herrera.com, where I also share more leadership stories and videos and so forth.
And the company email is?
What's that?
The company website?
It's on the back of the book. It's hello at bobby-herrera.com.
Wonderful.
And the website is bobby-herrera.com.
Terrific. We're gonna put that on the screen as well so people can see it. But I really want to thank you so much, and I do hope that you'll come back another time.
It was great to connect with you, Greg.
Very nice. Very
good.
nice. I enjoyed it very much, and thank you, Bobby. Thank you so much. I'll send you the link as soon as everything gets out of post-production.
You're welcome. Hail the underdogs, Greg.
Thank you. Hail the underdogs. Yes.